Good evening, I'm Jose Cardenas. Latino and Latina presidents of colleges and universities across the country write about their personal education and professional lives. The co-editors are here tonight to talk about the book. And in Sansa Cultura, SOC, an opportunity here in the Valley where you can see the work of artist Pablo Helguera. All this coming up next on Horizonte.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Thank you for joining us. Latino College Presidents in Their Own Words is a collection of autobiographical essays by Latino and Latina presidents of colleges and universities across the country. Joining me tonight to talk about the book are co-editors Dr. David Leon, Chair and Professor Emeritus in the Ethnic Studies Department at California State University, Sacramento, and Dr. Ruben Martinez, a professor at Michigan State University. Gentlemen, welcome to Horizonte.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us.
invitation.
The book talks about, in their own words, literally it's in their own words. Each
Yes.
chapter is written by a particular president, Latino or Latina. And in one of the reviews I was reading, it talked about the fact that you didn't do the normal statistical analysis. You really did want to hear what these people had to say about their experiences. Why?
Well, I think that's a more powerful statement of who these individuals are, that many of them are first-generation college students. Their parents have very low or no education. 9 of the 7 were the first ones in their families to go to college, and here they are, CEOs and presidents and chancellors of institutions of higher education. How did they overcome that huge educational and economic barriers?
Ruben, David's talking about some of the, as I understand, 6 commonalities that you all identified in terms of the experiences that this group had. Talk about those.
Well, one of them was that all of them came from families that valued education. It doesn't matter which economic position or location the family was in society, whether they were very poor or well-to-do. All of the families valued education and instilled in their children a love of learning and a love of education. That was a very strong dimension across the different presidents. Another one was that they did come to love learning, and they want, as presidents, to create opportunities for students to be able to have the opportunity to learn, to take advantage of the opportunities in higher education today.
Now, with respect to the Latinas who were in the group, and I understand there were 4 of them.
Yes.
One of the reviewers talks about the double helix of prejudice, both because of their ethnic origin and because of their gender.
Right. There's a couple of aspects there. One of them has to do with the patriarchal roles that we have in our society, and particularly, that's the larger society, but particularly in our own Latino communities, where women are expected to pursue traditional roles as they become adults. So they are not expected to become professionals or to take on roles that are not commonly held by women. So they have that issue to deal with. But then when you get out into the professional world, when they're in meetings and they're the only person in the room that's a woman, and they make suggestions about what could be done, or they're brainstorming about some issue strategically, they're not heard. So they have to find ways by which their ideas can be inserted into the conversation, and they can be addressed and taken seriously as potential ways by which some issue can be addressed.
And Dr. Leon, the underlying motivation for the book is the significant underrepresentation of Latinos in leadership positions in higher education.
Yeah.
Describe what you're talking about there.
Well, when you take a look at colleges and universities across the country, only less than 5% of those individuals are Latino or Latina. And actually, when you take a look at those numbers, it's right now about 3.9%. So it has actually decreased. And so this is really troubling, given the fact that the Latino population is the fastest growing minority population, not only in Arizona, but also across the country. And so this really troubles us. And this is a wake-up call to the Latino community and to the community at large that something needs to be done. And we wanted to present that message to a wider audience.
Is that a problem, though, that will cure itself as you have more and more Latinos and Latinas going into higher education and some of them pursuing careers in that field? Will the numbers be such that at some point that's going to take care of itself?
I wish that were true, but there was another study done by ACE, and it was entitled The Pathway to the Presidency. So the general pathway to the presidency is a PhD, start off teaching, become a department chair, move on to a school dean, and then finally to a provost position. But what we see is that when we take a look at those pathways, Latinos are not represented in those critical positions. And so we can't rely on that traditional pathway to provide a way for Latinos to become college presidents and universities. We have to find other means, other venues to find talented individuals to assume these kinds of leadership positions.
And Dr. Martinez, how will this book help deal with that problem?
Well, I think the stories that the presidents present here speak to their humanness, to the kinds of obstacles that they experienced and how they overcame them. And in this society, there's a tendency to think of our institutional leaders as being as extraordinary individuals, beyond the ordinary, when in fact they're very talented individuals by virtue of experiences, mentoring, and some other opportunities. They've been able to get to where they're at. But they're just human like the rest of us. And the presidents here not only speak to the obstacles they experience, because there's a tendency also to think that you're at the top of an organization, that you had it easy to get there. And they speak about the obstacles they faced. The other thing of it is that they provide considerable amount of advice for young people who are starting out in higher education as employees, either as faculty or as staff. They provide, I think, invaluable information about the kinds of things that they need to do to be successful as administrators, and I think that begins to address that issue.
On the first point, though, that you made, which is that they're just human, they're like the rest of us. One of the findings, though, that you discuss is the fact that they're held to a higher standard, or they seem to be, and as compared to their white colleagues.
Right. Well, that's a feature of American society, right? We do have racism. It has been here since the very beginning of the society, and still today, particularly in this period of austerity, so-called period of austerity, people are more likely to, I think, protect valued positions. One of the things about the presidency of an institution of higher education, it's a very prestigious position. It comes with good pay, it comes with political influence, it comes with incredible accolades and a great reputation. So it's something that people want to covet. They want to get to it, they want to keep it. And when you have scarcity in society, people ratchet down and begin to protect them. And so it's important then that we recognize this and find ways, as Dr. Leon is talking about, maybe expanding leadership programs, giving opportunities to others through internships, administrative internships, and so on, to be able to move up.
Now, Dr. Leon, one of the things that the two of you comment on in your book is not only the paucity of leadership positions overall at the top levels of higher education, but then the differences between the 2-year colleges, the 4-year colleges, between the major publics and then the private institutions, and then the elite liberal arts colleges.
Right. Well, we have a very structured, rigid system of higher education. We have the public and we have the private. If we look at the public institution in particular, most Latinos are community college students. And so when you look at the data, most Latinos who are college presidents are found in the community college. So that makes sense. And so fewer Latinos are enrolled in 4-year colleges and universities. We find fewer college presidents. And very few are in the private elite institutions. And at present, we have no Latinos, Latinas who are presidents of the elite colleges. We did have one president who was at a prestigious institution, but she's no longer there. She was turned out. And of course, we wanted her story, but she declined because she was writing her own story.
So one anomaly, though, that I think you note is you have at the liberal arts colleges where there's a real emphasis on diversity and getting minority students in there, and their numbers are going up there, but almost impossible for Latino or Latina to become president.
We really don't find examples of Latinos in those kinds of institutions of higher education. And I'm not exactly sure why, but we have seen inroads of minority African-American women becoming presidents of elite colleges and universities, and that makes nationwide headlines. But we don't see that kind of happening. We don't have that kind of situation for Latinos or Latinas at this point.
Dr. Martinez, David talked about one person who declined for a good reason. She's telling her own story. Anything that came out in terms of those people who A, said yes, and B, those who said no? Anything interesting about some of the reasons they gave for wanting to do this?
Well, I think they wanted to tell their story, and you know, they continue to think of public higher education as being a public good, and they understand that there are issues with succession. So I think they wanted to have the opportunity to tell the story both from the human side and from the point of view of being able to offer some mentoring advice to those who are interested. So I think they wanted to get that out. In terms of those who didn't, we had individuals, I mean, these are very busy people. So one of them who had initially agreed to participate let us know later on saying, you know, I'm at a campus that is unionized. We're going through some very difficult negotiation processes, so I'm not going to be able to devote any attention to this project, and I'm going to have to bow out.
Anybody who said no, though, because they were concerned about the consequences of being candid in such a book like this?
Well, one of them did speak to that, felt that it would not be, he wouldn't be honest if he didn't speak to the racism that he had experienced, but then felt that if he did come out with that it probably wouldn't be very presidential, and it might also limit some opportunities in the future for him. So it was kind of a dicey situation that we put these invitees in.
David, we're almost out of time, so last question. Anything that came as a surprise in this experience dealing with these individuals?
Yeah, when we talked about the common characteristics of the president, one was that disconnect between their parents' view of education but their low educational achievement. So demographically, Latinos have one of the lowest levels of educational achievement across the country. But their parents value education as a means for success. And I thought that was a surprise to me, in a sense that if you have low education, then why would you promote education? And of course, it makes sense, because it's an avenue for their children to get out of poverty. So I really love that disconnect. And there's a common perception that Latino parents do not value education. There are national studies and surveys that show that Latino parents value education more than Euro-Americans. And so that's another surprise, because they value education, and yet we have the lowest educational achievement of the ethnic groups in American society. So
there's so much more to discuss about this, including the impact of immigrants versus people who've been here for a while. But we're out of time. I'm sorry, but thank you both for joining us to talk about your fascinating book.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an 8 Insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the 8 Insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
To find out more information about what's on Horizonte, go to azpbs.org and click on the Horizonte tab at the top of the screen. There you can access many features to become a more informed Horizonte viewer. Watch interviews by clicking on the video button or by scrolling down to the bottom of the page for the most recent segments. Learn about more specific topics like arts and culture and immigration. You can also find out what's on Horizonte for the upcoming week. If you would like an RSS feed, a podcast, or you want to buy a video, that's all on our website too. Other features include our collection of website links and a special page for educators. While you're there, show your support for Horizonte with just one click. Discover all that's on Horizonte. Visit azpbs.org, Horizonte, today.
The ASU Art Museum will present 2 concurrent solo exhibitions of work by artist Pablo Helguera. Both of them will open tomorrow. Pablo Helguera, Librería Donceles, and Pablo Helguera, Christomapathy. You're going to have to work with me on pronouncing that one.
Pretty good. That was pretty
Will
good.
be the first presentation outside the East Coast of this new work by Helguera, a world-renowned performance and visual artist whose work puts together historical and personal narratives in the context of socially engaged art and language. With us tonight is Julio Cesar Morales, ASU Art Museum Curator. Julio, thanks for joining us. You've been on the show a number of
Yes,
times,
yes.
and these have all been great exhibitions that you come to talk about to us. This one's really big.
It's
I mean,
big,
this is
yes.
a huge, big-name artist. Tell us about him.
Well, Pablo originally from Mexico City, and essentially he went to New York to become a, seek his future as a contemporary artist, but at the same time he's also an educator. And so when he first arrived, he had the luck of landing a great gig at the Guggenheim. And he was in charge of the lecture series. And the interesting thing is that 20 years previous to that in Mexico City, he was a big fan of literature, a big fan of used books. And Donceles comes from a neighborhood in Mexico City, it's a street, where you find secondhand books. And when he, in the 80s, he found this book called Sobre el Futuro de Arte, on the future of art, that changed his life and made him want to be a contemporary artist.
And we're going to show a picture that
Yes.
really relates to how that all started. But just a little bit more about
Sure.
him. In fact, we've got the picture on now. We'll go back to his background.
Great.
Yeah, and so as I understand this picture, the book on the left is the book he found
The book on the right is the one that he
is the
found
one
in
in
Mexico
Spanish,
City in Spanish.
and the one on the left is the one in New York City.
Exactly. And there's a series of lectures from 1969, so he found the Spanish version in Mexico City in the 80s, and 20 years later, when he had his new position at the Guggenheim organizing lectures, he found the original manuscript and the original the original book that was in English, and he figured out that it was sort of this really interesting crossing over of cultures for him, because he basically replaced the person who created the series of lectures in 1969.
Now, as we noted, he's a big name in the arts world.
Yes, he is.
He has exhibited all over the world, more recently in Miami, Havana, Madrid.
Havana, Madrid, yes.
How'd you get him here?
If you ask for the right reasons, they will come. And essentially, a lot of the work that we've been doing at the ASU Art Museum is working with renowned artists, but there's something really interesting about the desert, about Arizona, its current social climate, and sometimes for the right reasons, they have the choice to really show anywhere around the world, but sometimes these types of projects are really more valuable in a sense, or have more of an impact in Arizona and in Phoenix.
So let's talk about the first of the 2 exhibitions,
Yes.
Librería, which is Spanish for bookstore,
Yes.
Donceles. And we've got a couple of pictures that
Great.
show what it looks like. And is this the way the exhibit was set up in New York?
Yes, the first iteration was in New York, and it was quite impressive because essentially I took over a gallery, and the gallery became a used Spanish language bookstore of 12,000 books. For Phoenix, we're having 14,000 books, and what's interesting about New York, that is interesting as well here in Phoenix, is that in New York there's 2 million Spanish-speaking people, and there is no Spanish language bookstore. So
And
this became
that's
the only one.
so hard to
Yeah, exactly.
believe,
It really
given
is.
their population. It's hard to believe we don't have it
Right.
in Phoenix, but in some ways more understandable.
Mm-hmm.
And the way this works, as I understand it, is
Yes.
people actually go in and they can buy the books.
They can buy the books, and they can buy 1 book per day.
And
but
it's
you can
actually
come
a
back-
donation, right?
Yes,
They-
it's
they make a donation.
Exactly, and that goes to a literary program here in the city. And essentially, you can go back as many times as you want and purchase books. And what's interesting about the collection is that 90% are by authors that are Spanish speakers, authors. So essentially, only 10% are translated from a different language. For example, if we go to Barnes and Noble,
Barnes and Noble.
if we go there, you'll find the majority of the books, or in our public library system, is the majority of the books are translated of popular novellas such as Don Brown and Daniel Steele, and they're translated to Spanish. Here at the bookstore, that we'll have is basically 90% original books written by writers.
And as I understand
From
it,
Spanish
people will go
language.
in and they express an interest in a particular area, and they'll
Right.
kind of be directed to that category.
Yes, exactly. It'll also be, again, he's a social, engaged artist in the sense that the work creates a second tier where he wants the bookstore to function as a platform. So usually in secondhand bookstores, there's programming. There's readings by authors, there's different performances, spoken mics, and so on. So we invited a lot of folks of a lot of nonprofit organizations here in Phoenix, and also ASU students to create their own programming for the bookstore.
And there's going to be something going on every day that the
Every
exhibition's
Thursday
open?
and Friday, there's something that's going to be happening.
And this goes through what, June 29th?
It opens this Friday, March 21st, and it goes to June 29th. And the hours are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 2 to 7 p.m. And essentially on Thursdays and Fridays is when we have the additional programming.
And as we've already noted, part of the significance
Mm-hmm.
of this exhibition is the stature of the artist,
Yeah.
but also kind of the environment in which he's coming in to talk about that.
Exactly. I mean, one of my interests, and as curator at the ASU Art Museum, and one of my objectives is to create more community around art projects, and a connection between community engagement with the museum, the local communities, and also with students as well. But our current social climate, where it's against the law to teach ethnic studies and K to 12, to me, it's just really interesting.
And periodic efforts to make the speaking of Spanish, at least in official
Oh, yes.
communications, illegal.
Well, this is in the English-only state, where if you actually look, the United States has no official language recognized. And so to me, it was very important to bring this project here to maybe attempt to create a dialogue with some of those issues that we're currently dealing with. And some of the programming will address some of those issues that we are in the midst of.
So let's talk about the other exhibition. I think
Yes.
I've got the word right.
Okay.
Crestomathy?
Yes, exactly.
And what does that mean?
I'm going to switch over to some of my notes. Basically, what that means, a collection of choice literary passages used to aid in the learning of a subject. And so essentially, the second part of the project of the exhibitions here, they mirror each other. And essentially,
Although they're in two different physical
they're
locations.
in two physical locations. And this one is at the Brickyard, which is a new space for the ASU Art Museum that is in Tempe at 7th Avenue and Mill. And that will have the same opening on March 21st.
The first one's downtown.
Yes, the first one is downtown at 821 North 3rd Street in the Roosevelt area. And that opening will be this Friday from 6:30 to 8:30. But both locations will open at the same time. And as I said, they kind of mirror each other in regards to the work. And the work that you'll see at the Brickyard, which is what it's being called, that location will feature some video and some text-based work, and as well as some imagery and an installation from him finding the book that really influenced him on being a contemporary artist.
And as I understand it, it's a series of pictures
Yes.
from a book that was written in Norwegian,
Yes.
and that he, I think the description is intentionally mistranslated.
Mistranslations, and that's Rogaland. And so essentially he was really intrigued by a book he found on geology, and he took it upon himself to just study the phonetics of the words within translation in English and in Spanish, and phonetically retranslating a language that he does not understand and creating a story or a subtext within that book in English, and it kind of reads as poetry in a way. And so essentially he appropriated this book from 1939 and recreated it as a story, and essentially you can read it as page per page. and
So
there's 63
he's sharing
pieces.
with us his own reactions to the images and the impressions it's made on him.
Exactly. In the same way that, you know, this is in the same way that the bookstore is a Spanish language bookstore, but maybe perhaps people can be a little bit more open and consider that maybe if they don't speak Spanish, maybe they can just go into the bookshop and look at books that can have a different experience for them, regardless if they can speak Spanish or read Spanish or not.
Both exhibitions sound exciting. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
to
you so
talk
much for
about
having
them,
me again.
and hopefully you'll get a good crowd at both of them.
Thank you so much.
That's our show for tonight. From all of us here at 8 Arizona PBS and Horizonte, I'm Jose Cardenas. Have a good evening.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.